The knock came on a Tuesday evening, sharp and insistent, cutting through the hum of a quiet suburban night. Marcus Kane set down the spatula he'd been using to flip burgers on the stove, wiped his hands on a faded dish towel, and crossed the living room of his modest two-story home in Willow Creek. He wasn't expecting anyone on a neighbor with a casserole or a delivery guy with a late package. The sound wasn't friendly. It was 3 quick raps, clipped and impatient, like someone who'd already decided they were annoyed before the door even opened. Marcus took a steadying breath, his broad shoulders tensing under his worn flannel shirt, and pulled the door open. 2 figures stood on his porch, silhouetted against the fading orange of the sunset. They weren't police, but they carried themselves with the same self-assured rigidity matching gray polo shirts, name badges pinned neatly to their chests, glinting like medals. The woman in front was in her late 40s, her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail that didn't dare let a strand slip free. Her eyes were narrow, her mouth a thin line of practiced authority. Sylvia Grant, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Marcus had seen her around, usually striding through the neighborhood with a clipboard, issuing fines for overgrown hedges or unapproved mailbox colors. Beside her stood a wiry man in his 30s, Paul Decker, clutching a tablet like it was a shield. His expression was softer, almost apologetic, but his presence screamed compliance. "Mr. Kane," Sylvia began, her voice smooth but edged with something cold. "We've received multiple complaints about your daughter." She paused, letting the words hang like a guillotine blade. Marcus blinked, his brow furrowing. "My daughter? Ellie." His voice was low, steady, but confusion rippled beneath it. Ellie was 13, a wiry kid with a mop of curly hair and a smile that could melt ice. She'd been born with a congenital heart defect, a condition that had kept her in and out of hospitals since she was a toddler. 3 surgeries by age 10 had left her with an artificial heart pump and a custom medical backpack that kept her alive. It wasn't sleek or subtle. It was bulky, with tubes and wires snaking out, a faint hum emanating from its battery pack. It was her lifeline. "Yes," Sylvia said, her tone clipped. "She's been seen in the common areas with an oversized, non-compliant accessory. It's disruptive, a safety concern, and frankly, it's unsettling to other residents." She tilted her head slightly, as if daring him to argue. Marcus felt a slow heat creeping up his neck. "You mean her medical pack? The one she needs to breathe? To live?" Sylvia's lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're aware of her situation, but the HOA Covenant Section 14 clearly states that all equipment and shared spaces must adhere to size and appearance standards. That device exceeds the limit by at least 8 inches and emits audible noise. We've had complaints." "Complaints," Marcus repeated, his voice flat. He ran a hand through his short, graying hair, trying to process the absurdity. "It's not a boombox. It's not a toy. It's keeping her heart beating." Paul shifted uncomfortably, tapping something on his tablet. "There's no medical exemption on file for your household, Mr. Kane. If you'd submitted 1 inch." "I did." Marcus cut in, his patience fraying. "Last year. Twice. With letters from her cardiologist. You should have it." Sylvia's smile tightened. "Well, we don't. Consider this your official notice." She handed him a folded sheet of paper, crisp and official, stamped with the HOA's logo. "You have 7 days to comply or face fines. The rules apply to everyone, Mr. Kane. No exceptions." Marcus took the paper, his fingers brushing the edge as if it might bite. He didn't unfold it, not yet. "She's 13, he said quietly, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "She can't survive without that pack. You're telling me she can't play outside because it doesn't match your aesthetic?" Sylvia's expression didn't waver. "I'm telling you the community has standards. If her equipment poses a problem, perhaps she should stay on your property. We're responsible for everyone's safety and comfort, not just hers." She turned on her heel, Paul trailing behind like a reluctant shadow, and they disappeared down the path. Marcus closed the door, the click of the latch echoing in the silence. He looked down at the notice, the words blurring as his grip tightened. "Upstairs, He could hear the faint beep of Ellie's monitor through her cracked bedroom door. He exhaled slowly, the paper crumpling slightly in his hand. This wasn't just petty bureaucracy. This was a line in the sand, and he wasn't about to let them cross it. Ellie didn't get it. That night, as they sat at the kitchen table over plates of slightly burned burgers and fries, Marcus tried to explain. She poked at her food, her hazel eyes wide and curious. "So, they don't like my backpack?" she asked, tilting her head. A curl fell across her forehead, and she brushed it back with a skinny hand. "Yeah, kiddo," Marcus said, forcing a smile. "They think it's too big or something. Don't worry about it. Okay? I'll handle it. Am I in trouble?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "No," he said firmly, reaching across to ruffle her hair. "You're perfect. They're just confused." Her mom, Rachel, sat beside her, her face pale and drawn. She'd been quiet since Marcus told her about the visit, her fingers twisting a napkin into knots. "Can I still go to the creek tomorrow?" Ellie asked, oblivious to the tension. The creek was her favorite spot and narrow stream behind the neighborhood park, where she'd sit on the bank and sketch dragonflies in her notebook. Marcus hesitated. The creek was technically public land, but the HOA maintained the paths leading to it. Their rules had a way of bleeding into everything. "Just keep your pack close, all right?" he said finally. "And call me if anything feels off." Ellie nodded, satisfied, and went back to her fries. But Marcus caught Rachel's eye across the table. She didn't say it out loud, but he knew what she was thinking. This isn't over. It happened 2 days later, on a crisp Saturday morning. The air was cool, the sky a brilliant blue, and the neighborhood buzzed with weekend life kids on bikes, dogs barking, lawnmowers humming. Ellie had slipped out after breakfast, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, her backpack humming softly against her back. She'd promised to stay near the creek, where the water glittered like glass and the world felt a little less heavy. Marcus was in the garage, tinkering with an old radio, when his phone rang. Rachel's name flashed on the screen, and his stomach dropped. She was at the grocery store he kissed her goodbye an hour ago. "Mark," she said when he picked up, her voice trembling. "It's Ellie. She's at the hospital. They said she collapsed by the creek. Get there now." He didn't remember hanging up. He didn't remember grabbing his keys or locking the door. The drive was a blurred lights ignored, horns blaring, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. When he burst into the ER, a nurse caught him by the arm. "Mr. Kane," she's stable, but it was close. "Come with me." Ellie lay in a curtained bay, her small frame dwarfed by the hospital bed. Tubes snaked from her chest, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. The backpack sat on a chair nearby, one strap torn, a battery pack cracked open, a thin smear of blood on the canvas. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. "What happened?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. The nurse hesitated, then lowered her voice. Witnesses said 2 HOA officials approached her at the creek. They pulled the pack off her. It disconnected. She went into cardiac arrest almost immediately. Paramedics got there in time, but she was down for 6 minutes. Marcus stared at her, the words sinking in like stones. "They pulled it off?" The nurse nodded, her eyes dark with sympathy. "A jogger saw it happen. She called 911. The police are looking into it." He turned to the backpack, his hands shaking as he touched the torn strap. Ellie's fingerprints were there, faint and red, as if she'd tried to hold on. Rage boiled up hot and primal, but he swallowed it down. Not here. Not yet. He sat by her bed, holding her hand, listening to the beep of the machines that had replaced the pack's hum. She didn't wake up, not then. The doctor said it could be hours, maybe days. Brain damage was possible. Nothing was certain. When Rachel arrived, her face streaked with tears, Marcus told her everything. She didn't cry harder. She went still, her eyes hardening into something fierce. "Who did it?" she whispered. "Sylvia Grant and Paul Decker," he said, the names tasting like ash. "They're not getting away with this." The police came that night, taking statements in the hospital waiting room. A jogger named Tara had seen all Sylvia marching up to Ellie by the creek, Paul trailing behind. Tara's voice shook as she recounted it. The woman said something about rules, told the girl to hand over the bag. The kid said no, said it was medical. Then the man just yanked it off her. She fell right there, hit the ground hard. They didn't even try to help. They just walked away. Marcus filed a criminal complaint the next morning, assault with intent to harm a minor. He followed it with a civil suit against the Willow Creek HOA, naming Sylvia and Paul personally. He wasn't just a grieving father. He was a litigation attorney with 15 years of experience dismantling corporations and winning impossible cases. This wasn't a fight he'd lose. Sylvia's lawyer called it a tragic error, claiming they hadn't known the pack was medical. But then Tara's video hit the internet. She'd recorded it on her phone, shaky footage of Sylvia saying, "We can't let one kid dictate policy," and Paul muttering, "Let's just get it over with," before he ripped the pack free. Ellie's collapse was silent, sudden, and horrifying. The clip went viral within hours. The HOA's internal emails surfaced next, uncovered during discovery. Sylvia had received Ellie's medical exemption a year earlier, pages of documentation from her doctor, marked urgent. She'd forwarded it to Paul with a single line, "Irrelevant. She's a liability." Paul had replied, "How do we stop this?" Another board member had written, "Make an example of her." It wasn't ignorance. It was intent. The charge escalated to attempted murder. Marcus didn't flinch. He sat in the courtroom on the first day, watching Sylvia and Paul shrink under the weight of the evidence. Ellie was there too, in a wheelchair, her chest bandaged, her eyes distant but alive. The jury didn't take long, guilty on all counts. Sylvia got 10 years, Paul 12. The judge called it a calculated act of cruelty under the guise of authority. But Marcus wasn't done. The HOA dissolved under public pressure, its bylaws scrapped and rewritten by a state oversight committee. Then came Ellie's law, federal legislation banning HOAs from restricting medical devices in shared spaces, backed by millions of signatures and a wave of stories from families like his. Letters poured in. A mother in Texas whose son used a ventilator, a grandfather in Oregon with an oxygen tank. "You fought for us all," they wrote. Ellie came home 3 months later, weaker but stubborn as ever. One morning, over pancakes, she looked up at Marcus and asked, "Can I go to the creek today?" He laughed a real laugh and said, "Anywhere you want, kiddo." She grinned, and for the first time in months, the world felt right. A year later, Willow Creek unveiled Ellie Kane Community Park, a sprawling green space with no rule signs, just open grass and a creek that sparkled in the sun. Ellie cut the ribbon herself, her hands steady, her backpack humming softly. The crowd cheered, but Marcus felt something quieter, hope. Because this wasn't just about his daughter. It was about every kid who'd ever been told their life didn't fit the rules and the promise that no one would dare make that mistake again. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.